Hello, I'm Get the Cans, and boy, has it ever hit the fan. Mark Bunker and Lowell, hope I'm pronouncing that name right, I'm not exactly sure, were arrested at Gold Base, apparently for trespassing, passing in front of the entryway. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, or any of the exact specifics, though I do have an article here where I got a general idea of what exactly happened. It seems that the so-called Church of Scientology is trumping up a bunch of charges because they can't find real charges. It's just more desperation, I guess, trying to demoralize people and to get them to stop protesting by trying to intimidate them by basically arresting people for nothing. You know, I'm not exactly sure what they plan on accomplishing with this, other than the fact that they basically are, spurring people on in trying to spread the message out as far as people getting angry over, stuff that isn't fair or just happening because of their nonsense. But it's interesting the way that the situation has turned out, and I'm really not sure that anything's going to come of it at all. And to be honest, I was concerned at first until I read this article that I was sent sometime after I got the notice that Mark was being arrested, or Mark was arrested, that gave me a few more details about the whole situation. And it just seems like rather mild. It's not anything serious, and to be honest, with the way that the laws are set out, ultimately nothing will happen. I mean, the worst that could possibly happen is that you could be given a fine or something, I don't know, but with the so-called church, there's really no telling exactly what they have planned, if they plan anything at all, considering how well things turn out for them. I'm really not sure if they do it or they just kind of go by the seat of their pants, if they haven't sold them already for, courses. But anyways, yeah. One of the more interesting parts of this article, of course, is the psychopath that comments in the comments section. I won't mention her name here simply because I'm going to provide a link to the article and you can read for yourself, especially considering the fact that this psychopath seems to be intent on suing everybody for taking their words out of context. So I won't take their words out of context. I'll simply paraphrase them and interpret them which way I want. See, that's still legal. I'm allowed to interpret anything whichever way I want and speak about it. It's not slander. She calls herself the bitch and calls for people to stop the protests and to cool down, and it seems really interesting. This is like a mega troll, which is just awesome as far as like having something really interesting to read, and it's really entertaining to read these long rants. But the upside is that she uses paragraphs and punctuation. Gotta give her points for that if it's a her at all, right? But definitely very interesting, and apparently these, at least for what I think, the so-called Church of Scientology seems to be intent on creating these people out of thin air. Now, I'm pretty sure that anybody who has been in Anonymous at all, or at least anybody who has been amongst those who criticize the so-called church, are those who disagree with any of the practices within the organization and the problems that may be within. Now, I'm not exactly sure what would cause somebody who is within this protesting, criticizing organization that we, or at least that I think that I am part of, and other people that I have talked to think that they are part of from what they have said to me. What would drive them to the point where they would want to call off all protests? It's a bunch of nonsense, to be honest. Even if you disagreed with something that may have happened, I don't know why you would want to say no protesting at all for either side. That's exactly what's been happening for the past 50 years with the exception, of course, the most recent year, of course. But no major impact was actually had until we actually started voicing our opinions and talking about this stuff. And it seems kind of ridiculous that anybody in their right mind who was part of the critics would consider quitting at all. Now, you can quit for a lot of personal reasons. In all honesty, if I were to ever have a personal life, I would probably have to at least change the methods that I express myself in such a way that the church would not be able, the so-called church, would not be able to use my protesting against me by simply tying me in with these images that they like to paint of terrorism and all this other stuff. But it only displays this person's ignorance, which only gives me more only convinces me more that perhaps that the so-called Church of Scientology is attempting to create members of Anonymous that don't actually exist, that object to, what happens in this, group of people, even though we're more of just simply a tightly linked group of individuals that aren't necessarily a group at all. I mean, for example, I have a life, and once a month, or at least once a week, I protest you with these videos, or I protest at the major protests, or I go around and I talk to people about, the stuff that happens in Scientology. And, and I don't have to be, under the command of anybody. I can just do that. That's one of the great things that this group actually is able to accomplish as far as not having any leadership, and that's pretty much what it is. No one is needed to lead. Even if someone does once in a while, it's not as if you can take that person away and then the group falls apart. The group goes forward under its own momentum, like an avalanche. You pull one rock out of an avalanche, it's not really going to stop anything. I mean, it really won't stop that force at all, and it'll just roll over anything that gets in its way, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. Now, it's a bit of a rough visual as far as the methods of the group known as Anonymous, but when it really comes down to it, you can't stop the truth anyways. So there you go. We give people a way of knowing that they're not alone when they're on the inside and they want to get out. And I don't really see what's illegal about any of that stuff. And you can try to paint people in a negative light, but when it really comes down to it, actions speak greater than words. And I have not really seen anything entirely objectionable that, I mean, really, out of all the anonymous folk that I know, there's not a single problem with any of them. I mean, we're all individuals, we're all different people, right? And sometimes you kind of have to go to your comfort zone when you deal with people that you don't know. And, of course, that's the entire point. You don't know them. You don't know the people that you're protesting with. But there's one thing that keeps you tied together, and that's what it is. It's a goal. What keeps you tied together is the goal. Now, the goal of, Anonymous is that Scientology is basically crippled to the point of bankruptcy, or basically to be completely eliminated in its current form. That was what the video had said. Now, that can come in many forms, and there are lots of Scientologists or people who support Scientology that have told me that that'll never happen. Even if you shut down all the orgs, people still believe in Scientology, and that's perfectly fine. But I really don't like the idea of having a powerful group out there, and then they go after judges and lawyers and stuff like that and use them to try to hurt people like me because they want other people to live their lives like them. Like they want me to live my life like a Scientologist, where I'm constantly giving them my money, working for them, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that they want to go after me personally or anything, but that's just generally the goal, is to take over the world. And then that's, not exactly a small goal. It's not easy to accomplish. So when you have an organization that has orgs across the world, when a few of them shut down, when their organizations like their charity organizations, and I use that loosely because they're not actually being charitable at all, as much as they're just simply brainwashing, as much as they're just basically indoctrinating people into their organization. It doesn't really actually do anything. I mean, Criminon is gone. I mean, as far as I know, there's probably still a few. Well, the thing about Criminon, I ended up basically watching this video of this Criminon, org or whatever, being like completely abandoned after the people who were in charge of that institute ended up skipping out on their bills for like a few months, and then taking all the prisoners that were inside and bringing them somewhere. I'm not even sure if anyone even knows where they are at this point, and that's exactly what we need. A bunch of violent offenders out there, and no one knows where they are. That's just perfect. Great job, Scientology. Perfect. We really need that. But this video is turning into a bit of a rant, so I think I'll just kind of chill out because I got some delicious pierogies that I want to eat.